Going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome in to another episode of the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball Show, a proud member of Underdog and the Underdog Fantasy family. Reminder, use code TRIPLE when over at Underdog, and you will get a deposit match up to $100. You can use this for any of the sports over at Underdog, but if you are a first-time depositor, they will match you up to $100. Make sure you take advantage of that. It is great stuff over at Underdog Fantasy. It's the show of brotherly love tonight, as it is just me and the doc. Lil Cheesecake is off in nature. Marty Party is out without power, and left your boys to just run the show tonight.
Real
Doc,
talk,
how are you
Art
doing?
probably has more Wi-Fi than Marty at this point.
He called him soft though too, which was hilarious. Art's the nature boy. Marty Party full on trying to get that power back. So prayers that he gets all his electricity in order there. Doc, how was your day? What's new in the world of Doc?
You know what? Day was long. David, even if it's just you and I, let's talk about baseball or get off topic like you and I always do.
That is true. That is true. Well, there is a lot of baseball to talk about, unlike last week where we were kind of off the All-Star break with not a lot of games. So let's talk about our WOW players of the week to kick things off. And one of my favorite rookies, and I drafted him a ton this year, he is finally getting the chance, and that is Sal Frelick. His first 5 MLB games so far this season, a 417, 556, 667 slash line with 1 home run, 3 RBIs. He also has 5 walks to 2 strikeouts over that time, even gives you a steal. He's a career in the minor leagues, a career 314, 393, 451 hitter. And that K rate, ladies and gentlemen, 11.7% in the minor leagues. Now, you hear this comparison a lot. He's like a diet Steven Kwan. He's a guy that makes a lot of contact, a guy that's going to get on base, a guy that is usually hitting atop the Brewers lineup. The only concern right now is they did sit him against the first lefty that they faced since he had been up. So that will be something to monitor if they are going to play him against left-handed pitching. But for right now, he's going to be atop this Brewers lineup. He makes, again, a ton of contact. He had 3 hits in his debut, just homered in one of his most recent games. And again, he's going to make a ton of contact, which is a great points league player. And then he will chip in some steals too to help in those roto leagues. So Sal Frelick to me is a must add. If he's out there in any type of 12 or 15 team leagues, especially points leagues, go pick up Sal Frelick immediately. He to me is the top waiver wire pickup of the show, considering some of the other players we'll talk about are a little bit more rostered.
David, I remember you and Vinny and Mike talking about him on the call up, and we had talked preseason. The only person that had a guaranteed roster spot in that crowded outfield was Christian Yelich, but they, tried the Jesse Winker experiment. Joey Weimer got some run there. They had Brian Anderson play a little bit. So it was always kind of open for Sal Frelick, and I'm glad that he's taken advantage of it. Now it has helped with some injuries. Winker, Brian Anderson have both gotten hurt. Tyrone Taylor's underperformed, but
Tyrone Taylor hurt. I don't think he's playing right now.
I feel like they've always done this game with him where, he has a couple home run games in a week, but strikes out a ridiculous amount. I mean, if they were committed to him, they would have made him an everyday player by this point.
Again, Sal Frelick is somebody that, is starting to get at it in a ton of leagues. So if he is out there in your league, he is definitely somebody you need to pick up immediately. Again, he is going to, I would expect at this point in the season, get a long leash with the Brewers as they've had a lot of problems with the outfielders. So Sal Frelick, definitely somebody to look at. This next player, Tristan Casas, Doc, he's somebody that's rostered a little bit more than I think usually someone we talk about in this section. But over his last 7 games, a 476, 593, 1,000 slash line, 3 home runs over that time, 6 walks to 6 strikeouts. But here's the thing with Tristan Casas. He's had multiple hits in 4 of his last 5 games, homering 3 times during that stretch. He has a 296 batting average with 12 homers and a 933 OPS while reaching base at a 389 clip since April 26th. So pretty much he was horrible. He hit under 200 the entire month of April, and ever since then has batted near 300 the rest of the season, which again won't show in his overall statistics. But Tristan Casas has really started coming into his own here as one of the best hitters on the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy that has just always been on base. Last season in 27 games in the majors, hit a 20% walk rate. Now, the thing that is a little bit alarming is the K rate has hovered around 24, 25% for his career, but it's 14.5% this year. And even with that horrible April, he has a 360 OBP. And the metrics on the StatCast page back it up. David, walk percentage, 96th percentile, barreling the ball in the 92nd percentile, hitting the ball hard hit percentage, 80th percentile, max EV, 86. I mean, in a points league, he's great. In a roto league, you're obviously hoping that he has a little bit more counting stats. The Red Sox have actually been more surprising than I think a lot of people pegged them for this year. Vegas had them for 77, 78 wins, and they're on pace for, I think, like 86. So I think a lot of players have been surprising on that team, and Casas included.
Yeah, Casas again, really starting to show why he was one of the top ranked prospects in baseball. And again, the Red Sox a little bit underwhelming this year. They have a lot of guys coming up. We actually talked about 3 Red Sox prospects yesterday on the call up. They have a bright future ahead of them, and Casas will be a big part of that
And
as he continues to grow into his own.
A big thing too, like you look at the BABIP and just how much that can fluctuate. His BABIP was 208 last year, and it's 304 this year.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see Casas, but again, somebody rest of season, if he's out there in any of your leagues, he's definitely not in 15 or 12 team leagues, but if even in a 10 team league, he might be worth a speculative ad depending on the roster size there.
You hear that, Marty? If he's a free agent in your 10 team league, get him.
That's right. 10 team leagues get the love too, just for our guy Marty on this show. Let's talk about Matt Wallner, who is somebody that many may not be familiar with, but this man, he's got big time power for my Minnesota Twins. Over his last 7 games, a 320, 393, 720 slash line with 3 home runs, 2 walks to 10 strikeouts. He started 9 straight games, going 8 for 31 over that stretch. And overall in the season, a 294 batting average with 8 RBI and 9 runs scored through 62 plate appearances. The thing with Matt Wallner, he is a Joey Gallo clone in terms of what you kind of can expect from him. He's either going to strike out, he's going to walk, or he's going to hit a home run. And obviously, again, people are starting to learn who Matt Wallner is. So, again, let me just kind of give you a little bit of a background. He has 2 home runs. He had a 2-homer game yesterday and 3 home runs over his last few days, over his last 2 games. All have been hit over 105 miles per hour. So he hits the ball extremely hard, and he had a nearly 30% strikeout rate in the minor leagues, which again, if you're striking out that much in the minors, it usually spells trouble for the bigs, and that's exactly the case. Again, he does get on base at a nice clip just because he walks a lot, but expect the true 3 type of outcome player from Matt Wallner. He hit a bomb yesterday, Doc. I don't know if you saw the highlight. He bats from the left side. He hit a bomb to left center field from the left side of the plate, like 440.
No, I haven't seen that. I'll have to look.
It's picture hitting the ball the opposite field. It's like straight, like pretty much like opposite field, kind of center opposite field, but hitting it 440. Like he freaking hurt that ball.
Wow. We don't have Art and Marty on for a 1 week, and you're dropping F-bomb.
Dude,
I know you and I do this off air all the time, but do you just drop the professionalism?
I did for a second just because that's how hyped I was seeing that home run. You have to watch it, Doc. Like he destroyed the baseball in a way, the opposite way that few can do it. So again, if you're looking for some power, Matt Wallner is going to give you that. If you're looking for potentially some people to help you on base, again, he does walk a decent amount as well, but just be prepared. The batting average could definitely not be an asset for him. It's definitely the power if you're picking up Matt Wallner. But somebody that is exciting in that aspect. Let's move next to another Minnesota Twin, one that many are more familiar with, and Edward Julian, who I feel like in most leagues was picked up when he was initially promoted and then dropped, and then he picked up again and then dropped, and then probably picked up again because over his last 15 games, he's hitting over 400.
Well, this would be great that David froze. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. So, with David talking about Edward Julian last 15 games hitting over 400 with 500.
And they don't want to take his bat out of the lineup. This is somebody that they want to keep in the lineup. So they're moving Jorge Polanco from second base to third base so Julian can stay in the lineup.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're talking about Edward Julian. We're talking about 2 Minnesota Twins in a row, David. So your bias is showing there for a little bit. Edward Julian, it's interesting because they talked about Jorge Polanco playing second, and now he's going back to third. Julian has started 11 out of 12 games post All-Star break. So you wonder if he's going to remain an everyday player. Not saying that he will be slated to a weak side platoon, but to see if he starts that amount or that consistency. But David, he strikes out a lot at 31.5% this year. And this has been a problem in the minors. Even in single A plus in 2021, he was striking out 29% of the time. Now, he does walk at a good clip, but also the BABIP, 416 this year. I think this is a guy that has been kind of riding the hot stretch. It kind of goes in line with the Twins. The Twins have the most strikeout in the majors. I feel like they're very much all or nothing, sell out for power or strike out. And I think Julian is going to be good because he's a middle infielder that will give you some pop. But I do think that you have to be kind of wary, especially in points leagues, about adding him.
Yeah, but again, somebody I do think is really coming into his own and will probably be universally rostered at this point, the way he's been hitting. Let's now move to Marco Luciano, who actually just made his major league debut last night, 0 for 2, but did have his first ball hit to the warning track before he was replaced by Jock Peterson in the 5th inning of the game yesterday. His minor league stats, 235 batting average, 13 homers, 35 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 39 walks to 80 strikeouts. He was promoted to AAA on July 18th and actually played only 6 games with AAA before they brought him up to the San Francisco Giants. He was hitting 292 with 2 homers, 2 doubles, and 3 walks over that time. The main reason to me that they brought Marco Luciano up is the Giants had scored 11 runs over their previous 6 games before they brought him up. They are really struggling offensively, and they're looking for a spark in any way, shape, or form at this point. And Marco Luciano has a lot of power. Obviously, the batting average is a lot to be desired, and this is a former one of the best prospects in baseball who's really floundered over the last few years. But again, the Giants are kind of looking for kind of just like infusing power or infusing just some youth and someone that can maybe pick this team up offensively. I don't know if Luciano is going to be somebody that is worth an ad per se, but it's how much he struggled in the minor leagues. Even the short sample in AAA doesn't wow me. But again, he could be someone you can make a speculative ad in a 15-team league. I just don't think I would take a shot in any league that's smaller than that. I think I'm still underwhelmed by his production overall, and somebody I think has a lot of holes in his game as well.
I mean, it's worked as the team has won 2 in a row. They had lost 6 before. And I think the Giants, a lot of people coming into the season didn't think that they would be competitive, but they're still leading by half a game for the NL wild card, the first spot. So they're going to continue playing him, whether he's producing or not. Sometimes managers just don't tinker with lineups that are working. If you look at the Reds, Joey Votto is hitting 186, and they could certainly put in someone that has a better batting average. But if they've been winning at the clip they have, why kind of mess it up? So yeah, just something interesting to look at with Luciano.
All right, then. So let's talk about our last player of the night then, in Will Benson. Doc, he's a personal favorite of you and I. Over his last 7 games, hitting 300, a 417 OBP, and 750 slug. 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 4 runs, 4 walks, 9 strikeouts, and 2 steals over that time. He hit 318 with 7 homers and 10 steals and a 1022 OPS since May 21st, all included with a 425 on-base percentage. And a cool thing here is he'd been sitting against left-handed pitching. Well, he's actually played against lefties in 2 of his last 3 games. So he's actually getting the chance to play more against lefties. He's been really turning it on since the end of May. And Doc, me and you have been screaming Will Benson privately and just texting from the heavens for a while now. And the Reds, I think, are finally giving him a chance for all the other guys they have here, Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McLean and all the other Reds that get a lot of hype. He kind of falls through the cracks, but he's been a really good hitter.
He has been. And one of the things that's encouraging is you mentioned that he's playing against lefties now. And they've now been sitting Joey Votto against lefties if they're going to sit a left-handed bat. So I really love that about him. And with CES, that's just another great hitter in the lineup. And even though Will Benson is hitting ninth, they kind of do that so that Ellie hits one. So if Will Benson gets on base and he has the 90s, or he's in the 90th percent of sprint speed, Ellie can hit for power. Ellie can hit for an average. I know he's been striking out a lot recently, but you have two electric guys on the base paths back to back. So I love that Will Benson's getting the playing time. He has 26 runs in 56 games. He has 10 steals. Yes, he is striking out over 28% of the time, but he's walking at a 14% clip. And I'm liking what I see out of him. I think he's someone that isn't owned in nearly enough leagues. He's probably owned in all 15-team leagues, but available in probably a lot of 12.
Yeah. Benson, I think, is somebody, again, very underrated at this point, and is somebody that is probably not going to be rostered anything, I would say, more than 15-team leagues, but he's definitely still showing that he is.
You want to know my nickname for him?
What's that?
The Fenson Benson, because he's fighting off that playing time.
Where have I heard that? Fenson Benson. Was that from iCarly when he was fencing?
Oh, you're good.
Oh, yeah. Look at that, David. Oh, man. I'm proud of myself for that.
It only took us 17 minutes to have a brother reference.
There we go. Have you seen any of the reboot from iCarly or no?
I haven't.
I was tempted to see it, but I've seen clips on YouTube. It looks really stupid.
I have to watch Zoe 102 also.
They're on Paramount Plus. We don't have Paramount Plus.
We have to illegally stream it. Oh, I didn't say that.
I got Hulu TV, so I have Disney Plus, Hulu TV, and Netflix, and then a few other, and then ESPN Plus now because that comes with it. I have a lot of these, but I don't have Paramount, and I'm kind of South Park's on Paramount. There's a few other shows on there too, but I have to see Zoe 102. That's a must. It came out today, so I was thinking of when we're done, seeing if I could find it.
We'll do it. We'll put it in the description if we find it, everybody.
Zoe 102, the illegal stream where you can find it. All right. Our most added players from the last week. Sal Frelick tops the list, added in 35% of leagues. Edward Julian, Chaz McCormick, Alex Kirilloff, Logan Allen, CJ Abrams, Wilmer Flores, and Tristan Casas. The most dropped players over the last week. Taking over the top spot is my guy Emmett Sheehan, dropped in 15% of leagues. Scott McGuff, 14%. Joey Votto, Mike Soroka, Jared Kelnick, Colton Cowser, Drew Smiley, and Braxton Garrett are your most dropped players of
David,
the week.
All I'm going to say is that Emmett Sheehan will never be on one of my teams again.
Keep him. I know he had a horrible outing when you picked him up, but he was going against Texas. So what did you expect?
He was going against Texas without Corey Seager and Adolis Garcia.
It doesn't matter. Texas is still really good.
Come on.
Jonah Heim's the top catcher in baseball right now. Marcus Semien still Marcus Semien. Josh Young is extremely underrated. Ezekiel Duran's a beast. There's still a really good lineup. I don't know why you did that.
Come on. Did you expect him to get bombed in 2.2 innings and give up
the way he'd been pitching? Yeah. I mean, this is a guy that hadn't pitched above AA really. He still has a lot to work on. I think his future is still really bright.
Jeez. I mean, let me tell you, his future might be bright, but it won't be on my team. That's for sure.
It was your fault picking him up against the Rangers of all teams. He's not like he had been good the last few outings either.
Whatever.
Schedule for next week. If you're listening to the podcast, the only things you should take note of is that the Detroit Tigers and the Oakland Athletics play 5 games next week. Everybody else is going to play 6 or 7. So in terms of making lineup decisions, you might just have to double think your Detroit Tigers or Oakland A's. But to be honest, not many people are starting either of those teams. So I would say your lineups are probably safe to just do your normal lineup making decisions next week. Doc, why don't you take us to the doctor's office and talk about your streamers?
You know what? Not really proud to talk about them this week. But I got to be transparent. Last week between Kyle Bradish and Braxton Garrett, we went 0-2 with a 10.76 ERA. a 1.74 whip, and 8 strikeouts in 9.2 innings. It's not going to get it done. And I own full responsibility, and those will go to my record at the end of the year. But we're feeling a little bit better this year. And I never thought I would be talking about Austin Gomby, as a streamer. But here we are, owned in 3.6% of ESPN leagues. He's allowed 2 earned or fewer in 5 out of 6 starts. He's actually looking like the piece that the Cardinals gave up for Nolan Arenado. And it would be crazy if Nolan Arenado gets traded and then the Rockies look like they're getting the best end of the bargain. But during that stretch, a 3 ERA, a 1.06 whip, 22-2 K to walk, 3 home runs allowed, spanning across 36 innings. And David, I don't know if you know this, Austin Gomber hasn't walked anyone in his last 4 starts.
Oh, wow. So I definitely, if I decide to ever bet the
under walks.
No, I was going to say bet the first pitch at the at-bat to be a ball or strike. I should probably always bet a strike with him.
You should. It's about as money as you can be with the walks is betting George Kirby's unders. But if you look, he's facing the Athletics, and I know it's in Coors, so there's always that risk. But the Athletics are hitting 217 post-All-Star game, and they do have the worst road record in the majors. So something just to pay attention to. Looking at Logan T. Allen, owned in 17.3% of ESPN leagues, and got a little roughed up last game. But before that, 12.2 shutout innings, no home runs allowed. Now, that was over 3 starts, so he wasn't going super deep into games. But still, good swing and miss material. Obviously, maybe a guy that doesn't go super late into games, even though he did go 7 innings against the Royals and gave up 4 earned in his last outing. But what I like about him is 3 out of his 4 pitchers have a 235 batting average or below, the fastball, the sweeper, and the change. So you just really hope he doesn't throw the cutter. That pitch has been getting killed, but it's his least thrown pitch. And he's facing the White Sox, who, look, the White Sox could be sellers. And obviously, Dylan Cease is a name on the market, but he got kind of roughed up tonight, giving up 4 earned. Tim Anderson could be on the block. I don't think there's anybody on that team minus Luis Robert that is 100% safe. So he could be facing a very depleted White Sox lineup.
Yeah.
And the last, and I really can't believe we have a Detroit Tiger and a Colorado Rocky on here. But we have the aforementioned Tariq Skubal, owned in 20.9% of ESPN leagues. He is coming back from injury, but what's encouraging is the pitch count is going up each outing. He topped out at 82 last game against the Giants, and that was by far his best game of the season. He had 9 strikeouts over 5 shutout innings. He hasn't allowed an earned run in 3 out of his first 4 outings. He did get roughed up in the other one, but in those 3 that he hasn't given up a run, he's allowed 5 or more, or had 5 or more Ks. And the Marlins are 2-8 in their last 10. They have really been sputtering post All-Star break, and even before that, when they optioned Yuri Perez, that just seemed like it was something bigger.
Could be. I want to shout out our guy Forrest in the chat. He said the show doesn't get the love deserved. Forrest, you got to spread it to your friends. Go on their phones and download the podcast to their phones.
Spread it like a communicable disease.
Exactly, man. Forrest, you're our guy, man. And they got to come around, get some taste, and come around here more often. I also think a lot of people have checked out because fantasy football is right around the corner now that it's about to be August. So people aren't watching as much fantasy baseball, but of course, you guys know every week we're going to still be here regardless. But we do appreciate everybody that does tune in to the stream and that does comment on the live chat each week. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a little, but we're here regardless. Right, Doc?
Yeah. And I was going to say, so he's mentioning lefties that the White Sox have. They
Lucky
have
hitters?
Yeah, I think so. Moncada's a switch hitter, right?
He is.
And then Benintendi's a lefty, right?
I'm pretty sure he's a righty. I'm double checking right now.
Yeah, that is. Eloy's a righty. No, Benintendi's a lefty.
Oh, he is? Okay.
TA is a righty.
Benintendi's a lefty. Grandal's a switch hitter. Moncada's a switch hitter. Oscar Colas is a lefty. That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a good portion of their lineup. Robert
But
and Eloy are
nobody's
righties.
good in that. Moncada is not good. Benintendi has no power. Grandal's okay. Ancolas is still a rookie and hasn't produced this season.
Remember when you and I were like super hyped about Andrew Benintendi like 3 years ago?
Yeah, dude, that was the guy a few
You
years
and
ago.
I took a collective L on him.
We did. Although he's had a long career.
Yeah. It's a long career for somebody that had like probably 1.5 good seasons.
Yeah. And Forrest is going to start Logan. I agree. I started him for his 2 starts this week against. He had the Royals his first start, and now the White Sox now. So definitely somebody that. And while mentioning the Royals, if any righties playing the Royals, you've got to play them because the Royals have been horrible against right-handed pitching. Twins and Mariners are also striking out a ton against righties. So if you have a righty going against the Twins or the Mariners, take the over on the strikeout props because right now
I think it was Luis Castillo and Pablo Lopez, and it was just a K fest watching that game.
George Kirby had 9 Ks against the Twins in 4 innings. He got lit up, but he got 9 strikeouts in 4 innings.
I feel like that's such a, not just George Kirby's line in general, but when a pitcher gets like 9 strikeouts like that, but they get hit, it's like you're getting a lot of swing and miss, or you're commanding the strike zone. But when you're not striking out hitters, you're getting hit. It's like both. It's like the in-betweens. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is interesting, those type of outings. I actually, Doc, have you been making any baseball bets?
I've been doing George Kirby under 1.5 walks for a lot. And I've been doing pitchers to not get the wins that I don't think are going to do it. And I did bet that Anthony DeSclafani doesn't get a win. I got a little bit of redemption, not as much as the 3 digits that I bet before, but I got a little bit.
Yeah, baseball has not been good to me betting wise this year. I've had a lot of bad beats. A lot of them, there were like a few 3 homers guys that I called, and 2 of them hit a homer. There was
what I would do to hit one person somewhat consistently.
The strikeout props have been, I think, the most brutal to me because there have been a few times I've done like a 3 or 4 leg strikeout prop and 3 of them hit, and then the 4th one missed it by 1 strikeout, or like the one recently where I had a 5-legger strikeout prop to win $1,300, and Logan Webb had needed 5, and he had 2 through 1.1 innings, but he got lit up by the Nationals and gave up like 6 earned, and they didn't even complete 2 innings.
For anyone that has this, Barstool allows you to kind of pick the prop. So if Logan Webb's strikeout is 5.5 on most sites, you can do 4.5, but you could also do like 6.5 or 7.5. Now, obviously, the odds do reflect that, but that's something that I've liked to do. Is, David, I bet unders 95% of the time, and if I'm really confident on an under, I'll be okay taking a worse line, but to get it at a higher number.
If somebody's listening to the show tonight, please, somebody have the balls to go and make a bet on first pitch outcome, if it to be a strike or a ball, and just do it just for the fun of it. Like if you see, like, let's say like someone like, we were talking about George Kirby. Let's say he's pitching to Carlos Santana and be like, all right, so when George Kirby pitches the top of the 2nd inning, Carlos Santana is going to be the first guy to bat. I'm going to put $10 on it to be a ball, or $10 to be a strike, just for the instant thrill of to see if it's a ball or a
David,
strike.
do you remember, this was back in like 2013, 2014. It was like over 80 at bats. Kurt Suzuki took a first pitch.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine if that was around then, and you're like, well, I know he's not swinging,
but that's so I was looking at Stephen Kwan the other day because he leads the American League in first pitch taken strike, or first pitch not swinging, lowest percentage of first pitch swinging pitches. It was like 10%, but then with that, obviously they're probably not going to swing, but then pitchers might know that and they throw them a strike to start because they're like, okay, they're going to probably take the first pitch. And sure enough,
that's what I'm saying. If they know Kurt Suzuki isn't going to swing, they might just give him a strike knowing that it's going to be a free one.
So like, that's interesting though. So like, I thought about it and I was like, I would never do this, but I was like, what if you put $1,000 and you did that like 5 or 6 times a night and you would hit it consistently, you could easily make like a few $1,000s every night just on ball or strikes.
It's
It
you talk about it like it's a given, but there's absolutely no way to predict it. But because something could be in play also. We're talking about like they don't have the option, it's a coin flip. But really there's 3 outcomes that come with that.
Yeah, and I mean, there are 3 outcomes list or 4 that they list for if you do a ball or strike, then it's
In
single or
play.
it's an extra base hit.
Oh,
Um,
okay. They don't even do in play.
um, but most of the time, I mean, there are first pitch things in play. Like Mauricio Dubon is a good first pitch in play, and same with Rendifo for the Angels. They're like
What I think is interesting too, and I don't know if you've ever done this or anybody that is listening, but you can bet on next pitch speed. So sometimes if I see somebody
yeah.
has thrown 2 fastballs, they adjust that a little bit, but to see, okay, maybe they throw an off speed now because they usually have it what the fastball average velocity was during that game.
They're pretty in tune to Baseball Savant. I'll look and I'll say like Garrett Cole's average fastball is 96.7, and then I'll look on the prop and it's like 96.7, and I'm like, yeah, they're hip to like they're like definitely caught up to those types of things that measure it pretty well.
It's interesting. This is our first season doing the podcast while gambling has been legal, and I feel like that has honestly changed our analysis a little bit, or like what we're paying attention to, because these are experts that make these lines, and that's sometimes how we're predicting a team is going to do. What their season over unders, how many wins they're projected for, how many counting stats players are projected for, home runs, RBIs, wins, strikeouts, because these are what Vegas gives us. And that, I don't know, it's just interesting how gambling has taken so much of our time, David. It's something you and I talk about frequently, almost every day.
Yeah.
And just like how in tune it is with the game, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, people that play fantasy, there's a big crossover to people that also do betting because where it's legal, because if you're spending the time with fantasy analysis, you're also dabbling into that side of things. I even, to be completely honest, like I still play fantasy baseball. Obviously, we talk about it every week, but I pay a lot more attention to gambling stuff when it comes to baseball. Like again, seeing, okay, look at the Swish analytics and seeing like batter versus pitcher matchups, looking at people's ISOs over the last couple of weeks, looking at, what a pitcher's K percentage is, or like a team's K percentages against that same handed pitcher. If I'm looking at strikeout props, like there's a lot of things like that do tie into, you could tie into fantasy. It's like, okay, I'm going to stream this player because the Royals have the worst WOBA against right-handed pitching this season. But like you could tie that in, but obviously you're getting a lot more bang for your buck in the sense that you're getting a lot of more money if you're using that analysis towards betting. So
And
it's a
same
good
thing, you're putting
crossover.
your money where your mouth is.
Mm-hmm. And definitely like my football success was a lot higher, and baseball is a little bit more up and down for me for sure. But it's still always doing the same type of research, and those types of decisions and the research can help make you a better fantasy player as well.
This is the one thing I'll kind of wrap out this segment with is when you play fantasy, whether you're in, an NFBC league like we are with 15 other or 14 other people, or you're doing a head-to-head league, sometimes you can it's unfortunate if you're the second top scorer and you play the top scorer, or somebody you're playing against just has a ridiculous week and it's nothing you can control. You have control in everything that you gamble on, because ultimately you're deciding what you want to wager on and how much. Now, obviously, you don't have much as much as say in the outcome, but at least you're controlling the action.
Yeah. I will say too, I think also betting has kind of killed DFS a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed that too. I
For
feel like
sure.
I feel like DFS is still around, but it's not in the same capacity since betting became legal in a lot more places. And it's because you're competing against yourself. You're not competing against a field of what could be a couple people to a few hundred to a few thousand. I think best ball is kind of that I'm competing against a whole field of people. But like the DFS angle, it's again, DFS is still very much around, but it's
And
not
best
nearly
ball
as big.
is during the preseason when kind of like the hype is building up.
Yeah.
We talk about how, week 18, we're talking about it now, and the fantasy baseball interest has died out. It's a long season. It's a grind. Most seasons are 21 weeks. the hype is really before the season starts, and that's like what best ball captures. And then, like you said, in season, everybody's kind of in tune at the beginning, but the amount of things that you can gamble on is really attention grabbing. Anything that you can think of, you can probably place a wager on.
It's very interesting for sure. Why don't we close out the show, Doc? Talk about some of the trades that have happened too, just for the fantasy side of things as well. First one, let's talk about Carlos Santana going to the Milwaukee Brewers. Is this something or nothing to you?
It's something. Carlos Santana has been on a tear recently. He's an on-base machine. He doesn't strike out at a high clip. He provides veteran leadership. And I think he's going to be kind of that Rowdy Tellez, the guy that plays first base, DH, has some power. And you know what? It's interesting because the Pirates were doing really well at the beginning of the season, and then they have really, really sputtered, except against the Padres, where I needed them to do bad. And obviously, there is gambling associated with that, if you couldn't tell by the tone of my voice. But I think they got him for relatively cheap. They're winning the division, and I think baseball, more than any sport, if you get in the playoffs, you can make a run.
Yeah. I mean, Carlos Santana over his last 7 games hitting nearly 270. 367 OBP. He's got 3 home runs, so he's hot at the right time. He is usually not going to play as much against lefties, just if you're looking at that platoon splits. Even though the batting average isn't that significant, he has had only 108 plate appearances this season against lefties compared to 285 versus righties. 2 of his 12 home runs have come against lefties. It's not like he's a strict platoon player. He will play against lefties for sure. But I can imagine a team like the Brewers, they're probably going to mix and match him more than a team like the Pirates, who would just probably play him almost every day. But he's, again, definitely hot at the right time, and he's definitely going to help that lineup. So, again, Rowdy Tellez was supposed to do that this season at first base, and Santana, I think, is going to help pick up the slack there. Somebody definitely increases value. What about the big trade of Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez to the Angels in exchange for Edgar Quero and Kai Busch, Doc?
I don't understand it. I think the Angels are hoping Ohtani resigns there. It'll be interesting to see how much money they're willing to shell out. That kind of dampened the trade deadline. Everything was revolving around if Ohtani was going to get traded. I'm not surprised the White Sox traded Giolito. I thought that he would be the one that would be going if they traded anyone overseas. But they're still 4.5 games back. I understand they just swept the Tigers and they've won 4 in a row, so they're getting hot at the right time. They also must have news that Trout is expected back sooner than that 6 to 8 week time span.
Yeah, I mean, I put a tweet out this morning, and I said they're 7 games behind the Rangers and 4 games behind the Astros. 7 games for the wild card, or for the division, 4 games for the wild card. So they're not out of it yet per se, but this basically signified they weren't going to trade Ohtani. And you can look at this to me as like a glass half full or glass half empty. The Angels are looking at this as a glass half full. They're saying, we're going to go for it one more time with our current roster. We're going to be optimistic Ohtani is going to re-sign here. If he sees we're going for it, maybe we make the playoffs and that will cement him staying here. And that's fine. And I can get maybe for your fan base that you don't want to show you're giving up. At the same time, the Angels are not going to win the World Series. The Angels are very much, to me, an outside chance of even making the playoffs. You have one of the worst farm systems in all of baseball, and you gave up 2 of your best players in your farm system. I want to shout out Vinny down on the farm because he was in our group chat saying they only have, I think, like 3 players now in the top, like 250 of prospects ranked. It's just they're gutting what they don't have a lot of. And at this point, it's like, you're not 1 or 2 pieces away from, being a World Series contender. So like at this point, it's to me more of a backward move than a forward move. And if Ohtani leaves after the season, maybe you wouldn't have gotten a full trade value for him because he's basically a rental, but you would have gotten some pieces to help rebuild the farm system and start building ahead. Then maybe you trade Mike Trout and just hit the reset button because right now this ain't working. And to me, you're just dragging this out.
I would have loved to see the offers they got for Ohtani because we didn't really hear anything serious. Like if you look on when they had the lines up on DraftKings, and maybe they still do, but obviously the odds are a lot more favored in Ohtani, of the other teams that he was rumored to go to, because we didn't hear anything heavy. So maybe teams weren't right. This is the one thing I can see the Angels holding on to Ohtani, maybe not giving up as much as they did for Giolito. But if you didn't get a good offer for Ohtani, because it's not like these deals are made in private, they're made in public for everybody to see. That could be a huge turnoff to the fan base if you got pennies on the dollar, because teams aren't willing to give up a lot for a second half rental. So that could be the case I see of why they kept him. And I guess Giolito is the second best starter on the market to Cease, right?
I don't think Cease is a free agent though. I mean,
no, but I'm talking about that was rumored to be in trade talks, because Cease had been in there, Giolito, Marcus Stroman, Jordan Montgomery.
I mean, probably. But the thing is, Giolito's a rental. He's a free agent after the season's over, and Cease is under contract. So, I mean, they also, again, they're trading for half a season of Giolito, who probably doesn't even sign back there, to be honest. So, like, the Angels could be very well, a very realistic outcome for the Angels could be you lose Ohtani in free agency, you don't make the playoffs, and you lose Lucas Giolito after the season's over, and you're left with
still stuck with the Rendon contract.
You're still stuck with the Rendon contract. Mike Trout's contract's becoming really bad too, because he's missed a lot of time with injuries, and he's making the second or third most amount of money in baseball, behind Harper and or behind
Tatis is making a lot. This is when the first year of his contract kicked in.
He's still in the top 5, I think, in AAV.
Harper, Mookie's making a lot of money. Scherzer and Verlander are making 40+ mil each this year.
But they're shorter deals. Trout's signed till like 2030.
Yeah.
And Trout's still good, but he's getting injured all the time. And
can you imagine how angry Trout would have been if they traded Ohtani and not him?
The Angels, man, they're in trouble. They don't have an identity to me, especially like once Ohtani leaves there, which I think it's a matter of when and not if. They're not going to have any type of identity. So, again, I understand why they did what they did. I just don't think that's the right way to go about it at this point.
It's easy for me and you to say, because we're just two random guys that are podcasting, but that's a lot of pressure from the front office. Like they were talking about I forgot the name of the Angels GM, but it was a career defining. Like if he had traded Ohtani, that would have been his career defining move. It's a lot of pressure. Yeah,
it is. And I think it's one of those things he probably just said, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to, the backlash of showing I'm basically giving up on the team, which that's the only argument you can make for it, is like, if you do that, it basically shows you're giving up on the season, and you're giving up on the team contending anytime soon, because giving up a talent like that, you're basically saying we're throwing in the towel. And
that it's might hurt his job security. If he might buy more time as a GM, showing that he's actually making a move, willing to go all in. The owner might appreciate that more than, selling. And with any trade with Ohtani, I'm sure the owner has to sell off. You don't trade the best baseball player of all time without getting the person who's writing the check's approval.
Yeah, and Vores outlines it well. You're not getting a crazy deal for half a season. So,
say that second part.
You're not getting a crazy deal for half a season. So that's, I guess, ultimately they decided it wasn't worth it. So that happened. Also, a little bit less significant, the Dodgers and Guardians swapped Noah Syndergaard and cash considerations for Ahmed Rosario. How is Noah Syndergaard still in the league, Doc? Because he's been awful.
Nah, it's got to be his reputation, or he has dirt on someone. Let me just say, Xander Bogaerts wouldn't have gotten traded midseason.
No, I know where you're coming with that. Syndergaard, if the Dodgers couldn't fix him, I don't think there's any hope for him. I don't think he even finishes the season with the Guardians, to be honest with you. I think they'll cut him before the season's over.
I think so, too. I think it was just swapping a name. The Guardians kind of, too. They're in that middle ground territory where they're potentially fighting for a division, maybe a wild card spot.
And Ahmed Rosario, I believe, is a free agent after the season's over. So this is, again, not really necessarily a long-term move for either team. And obviously Noah Syndergaard is not signed past this season either. And then I believe the only other significant trade, there may be two more, Twins and Marlins swapping Jorge Lopez for Dylan Floro. I think the only thing is they're both underwhelming relievers that had decent seasons earlier last year. And then once Lopez got to the Twins was awful. Floro started out the year pretty good and then became awful. Jorge Lopez is signed for one more year under team control, and Floro is a free agent. I think that's the only advantage for the Marlins in this deal. But I think it's pretty much, hey, both of them are not doing well. Let's see if change of scenery works for them.
I agree. I don't think we need to spend more time talking about mediocre relievers.
All right, then. I believe there might have been one more trade. I mean, Eflin hurt his knee, so he's getting an MRI on that. I think that might be there's a lot of rumors out there, but that might be all the trades that have gone down since, like, there was Lance Lynn rumors for a little bit. Nolan Arenado to the Dodgers is still getting floated around a little bit. Padres.
It's been an underwhelming trade deadline so far. We have 4.5 more days. I need a little bit more action.
I think there will be. Rumors are going around right now, but there'll be more added in.
Well, you know what, David, I actually disagree with that, and I guess we'll end the show on a disagreement. I think the teams that were rumored to be sellers, Angels, Cubs, potentially Marlins, like a lot of these teams have come out hot after the All-Star break. You know, you thought Cody Bellinger might be on the block, and he's the Cubs have won 6 straight now. I don't know. I don't think there's as many sellers out there as we thought.
Give me a name that you think gets traded.
Lance Lynn.
I'll say Cody Bellinger.
You think Cody Bellinger gets traded still?
Yeah, I think he goes.
I think he does too, honestly.
I think he goes to the Diamondbacks.
Oh, you listened to our show and Vinny last week.
Yeah, I think I agree with him, especially that he's from Arizona.
I think it'd be a good move.
The Cubs would be stupid, in my opinion, not to trade him because he's been down the last few seasons. He's coming back, had a really great year. He's a free agent after the season's over. Why not flip him right now?
They're not going to sign him to that big deal.
Exactly. So
I would be interested to see what he is going to get on the market, though, because I don't think a team would give him a 5 or 6 year deal. I could see him making a 3-year, like $90 million, like something that's shorter where he's getting paid. But
yeah. Doc, anything else to add for the good of the group before we wrap up for the night?
No, just follow us on Twitter. Let us know if you're liking our betting content. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that on the show. And give me and David a juicy parlay that we should do together.
Eric and I were talking about doing 2-leg parlays where we each do a pick and do a collab, and see if we can the brother collab can actually do something in the betting.
And you know what? I'd say David and I are above average gamblers.
Yeah, again, recently it's been very cold for me, and I haven't bet as much baseball as I did earlier in the season, but that's partly because of real life things going on right now. But
too much for Cody. All right, 3-year 75, 25 mil a year. That's more realistic.
You think that's what he's getting?
I think a 3-year deal. I don't think anything more than that. I think 3-year in the 20 to 25 AAV. Nobody's going to give him a 5 or 6 year deal unless they can get him for 20 mil or less.
I'll say he gets a 2-year 30.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, if you guys are enjoying the content, please make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel if you're not already. Set a notification bell so that way every time on Thursday evenings when we go live, you guys never miss the show. It's usually Thursdays around 9:15 p.m. Eastern time every week. Next week, we should have Marty Party and Lil Cheesecake back. Doc probably will not be here, but we will have at least 3 of us for next week. Again, once we get kind of closer to the end of the season, it's a little bit harder to get everybody here because there's a lot of stuff going on right now towards the end of the summer. But we are appreciative for those that do come out and watch the show or listen to the podcast. It is greatly appreciated. We actually have not missed a show in 4 years of doing this. Crazy enough, we have done a show every week for 4 years. We're that dedicated to make sure that we're here every week for you guys. And if there's anything you would like to see in the future, just make sure you can DM us on Twitter. You can send an email to tripplayfantasy@gmail.com.
Giving them the email, man.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Just let us know what future content you'd like to see. But your support is greatly appreciated. For Doc, I'm David. We'll catch you guys next week. Until then, we're going to make like a bread truck and haul these buns. Talk to you guys next week.